Welcome to your comprehensive financial and crypto astrology forecast for November 2025. This month marks one of the most profound financial power shifts of the year, a time of systemic transformation that reaches beyond surface-level market movements. This analysis moves beyond traditional technical indicators and price charts, focusing instead on the collective psychology driving financial behavior, ranging from the impulsive optimism of retail traders to the cautious strategies of institutional investors. Planetary movements, lunar phases, ingressions, retrogrades, and astrological aspects are interpreted not as direct price predictors, but as symbolic reflections of emotional cycles, fear and greed, risk appetite, speculation, innovation, and crisis response. These energetic patterns offer a strategic lens for identifying potential turning points, sentiment extremes, and optimal timing for market entries or exits. Using Western tropical financial astrology in the archetypal whole sign house system, we decode celestial influences to uncover deeper patterns in market sentiment, volatility, and momentum across key assets including Bitcoin, XRP, AltCoins, gold, silver, and the US dollar index. We will assess several crypto sectors, legacy altcoins like XRP and XLM, DeFi tokens, Ethereum and Web3 ecosystems, Solana and AI-driven cryptos, privacy coins, and stablecoins, evaluating each through the astrological dynamics of November. By the end of this forecast, you'll have a nuanced, timing-based framework to navigate what could be the most dynamic and challenging month of the year. Important notes: these insights are based on archetypal planetary symbolism and cyclical astrology, designed to complement, not replace, fundamental and technical analysis. Astrology reflects potential energies, not guaranteed outcomes. Market dynamics can shift rapidly due to geopolitical events, regulatory changes, or macroeconomic surprises. Always practice rigorous risk management, do your own research, and never invest more than you can afford to lose. Remember, the stars impel, they do not compel. Use astrology as a timing guide, let it inform your decisions, not dictate them. With that in mind, let's decode the cosmos and prepare your strategy for November 2025. Astrological backdrop: November 2025 is shaped by the contrasting forces of Scorpio's depth and Sagittarius's expansive fire, a combination the forecasters call an alchemical reset. The month's leitmotif is revelation, the veil is pierced, value is redefined, and new markets emerge from emotional depths. Crypto-centric sentiment leans bullish, but the inherent volatility of the period ensures that any upside will be accompanied by sharp price swings. Market rhythm: the month unfolds in three distinct phases. Early month turbulence: a Mars-Uranus clash spurs bold, impulsive moves, driving rapid swings between fear and greed. Mid-month correction: Mercury retrograde amplifies overreaction, prompting a pullback that tests over-leveraged and value-pegged positions. Late-month rebound: as the Sagittarius influence strengthens, speculative energy resurges, and confidence rebuilds around the Scorpio new moon, setting an optimistic tone heading into December. Traders who align entries and exits with these astrological windows can capture upside while mitigating whipsaw risk. Fire-oriented, high-beta assets are poised to outperform during the late-month surge, whereas heavily leveraged or value-heavy instruments may falter amid the earlier corrections. November's volatility acts as a purifier, stripping away weak structures and allowing fresh valuations to take root. The period promises both significant opportunity and heightened risk, rewarding disciplined timing and a focus on assets that thrive under rapid, speculative momentum. Now let's dive in. Early November volatility and speculative peaks. November 4th, Mars enters Sagittarius. November 5th, Taurus full moon and Mars-Uranus opposition. November 6th, Venus moves into Scorpio. The first part of November will be marked by chaotic, Uranian energy, fostering a bearish sentiment for speculative assets like cryptocurrencies and equities. This volatility is expected to trigger a significant correction, with investors favoring safer havens such as the US dollar and gold. The most critical market movements will revolve around key astrological events, particularly from November 4th to 7th, when the Mars-Uranus opposition and the full moon in Taurus converge. This period is likely to create a major market bottom driven by panic, presenting a prime buy the dip opportunity. Speculative momentum and early volatility. The month opens with heightened speculative energy, driven by impulsive trading behavior. From November 1st, the moon's transit through Pisces into Aries amplifies emotional decision-making, fueling speculative rallies, especially in altcoins, and pushing prices into overvalued territory. Conjunctions between Mercury and Mars exacerbate FOMO, fear of missing out, increasing the risk of false breakouts and exaggerated price surges. However, November 2nd introduces a phase of caution as the moon conjuncts Saturn and Neptune in Pisces, blending restrictive control with market illusions, potentially triggering early sell-offs. Critical turning points, November 4th, 7. The Mars-Uranus opposition on November 4th signals extreme volatility, often associated with flash crashes, panic selling, and erratic algorithmic trading. As the moon enters Taurus, November 4th, 6, stability-seeking behavior emerges, prompting profit-taking and rotations into safe haven assets like gold and stablecoins, likely causing a short-term crypto dip. The full moon in Taurus on November 5th acts as an emotional climax, coinciding with the disruptive Mars-Uranus energy. This alignment emphasizes value-based assets, gold, stable cryptos, but may also trigger a sharp sell-off as sentiment peaks. Venus shift into Scorpio from November 6th deepens financial emotions, encouraging secretive or conviction-driven investments amid tightening liquidity. On November 6th, the moon conjunct Uranus in Gemini injects sudden volatility, particularly in crypto and tech, leading to explosive rallies followed by sharp reversals, marking a speculative peak for altcoins. Recovery and structural support. Despite the early turmoil, harmonious aspects provide brief clarity. By November 7th, Jupiter trine Lilith exposes suppressed agendas, particularly in decentralized projects, setting the stage for a potential recovery. Investors should watch for the market bottom forming between November 4th, 7, offering a strategic entry point before stabilization. Mid-month confusion, retrogrades and structural shifts. November 8th, Uranus retrogrades back into Taurus. November 9th, Mercury stationing retrograde in Sagittarius. November 11th, Jupiter turning retrograde in Cancer. The period commencing in mid-November is defined by powerful, simultaneous structural shifts. First, Uranus's retrograde return to Taurus initiates a significant, long-term challenge to centralized finance, commodity valuations, and traditional monetary systems. This ongoing shift reinforces the bullish case for decentralized and tangible assets. However, the retrograde motion is expected to delay tangible breakthroughs while creating underlying tension and disruption in tangible asset markets. Second, this complexity is amplified by Mercury stationing retrograde, a transit known for fostering market confusion and misinformation. Volatility is anticipated to increase sharply between November 6th and 8th, driven by the moon in Gemini coinciding with rumor-sensitive markets. Enthusiasm may cool momentarily on November 8th due to a square to Saturn. A critical reassessment phase immediately follows, November 8th, 11, as three major bodies station or turn retrograde. Uranus retrograde enters Taurus on November 8th, Mercury stations retrograde on November 9th in Sagittarius, and Jupiter stations retrograde in Cancer on November 11th. This triple shift compels a mandatory reevaluation of prevailing market optimism, contracts, and data, with Mercury's initial entry into retrograde heightening miscommunication and the overestimation of positive narratives. Mercury's retrograde cycle, November 9th to November 29th, is defined by two phases. Initially, it fosters technical delays and exaggerated narratives while in Sagittarius. However, the cycle shifts into deep investigation as Mercury retrogrades back into Scorpio. Expect extensive confusion, revised narratives, and data distortions that may lead to temporary mispricing and renewed scrutiny on regulatory developments or vulnerabilities in decentralized systems. Crucially, the passage through Scorpio enhances investigative potential, making this a potent time for uncovering hidden truths, such as internal audits, security breaches, or covert market manipulations. Increased institutional control and regulatory consolidation are also anticipated. A favorable buy-the-dip window is anticipated around November 9, 10, supported by the Moon in Cancer and encouraging liquidity and emotional buying. This is followed by a short-term peak of exuberance around November 10, 12, fueled by the Moon's conjunction with Jupiter and her ingress into Leo. This strong, albeit potentially unstable, rally, bolstering high-beta altcoins, is identified as an excellent first opportunity to sell the top and take profits, even though it may coincide with a potential short-term top for Bitcoin and gold. Realism sets in, facilitated by Jupiter turning retrograde on November 11. Between November 12, 15, the pragmatic Virgo moon, facing restrictive alignments, introduces a potential correction and encourages profit-taking. Confusion and a distinct risk-off environment are likely around November 13, 14, due to the moon squaring Mercury and Mars. Opportunities for dip buying exist between November 14, 16, with breakout potential favoring DeFi and Layer 1 altcoins around late November. Market balance returns as the moon enters Libra, November 15, 17. Strategic clarity and foundational confidence are bolstered by a stabilizing influence with the Sun trine Jupiter and Saturn on November 17, setting the stage for emotional intensity under the Scorpio moon, November 17, 20. Late November, shifting energies, from potential market bottom, to concluding the month with renewed confidence, November 19 to 22, Scorpio stellium of the Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, and Lilith. November 20, new moon Scorpio stellium in opposition to Uranus retrograde in Taurus. November 22, Sun enters Sagittarius. November 28, Saturn turns direct in Pisces. November 29, Mercury turns direct in Scorpio. November 30, Venus enters Sagittarius. The latter half of November, 20th, 30th, marks a transformative and volatile phase in market dynamics, driven by significant astrological alignments. A major market top is anticipated around November 19, 20, culminating in a powerful blow-off rally fueled by a stellium of the Sun, Mercury, Venus, and Lilith in intense Scorpio, conjunct the Moon. This configuration signals peak greed, over-leveraging, and a euphoric speculative surge, particularly in altcoins, making it the strongest sell signal of the month. Coinciding with the new moon in Scorpio on November 20, this event acts as a cosmic reset, amplifying emotional extremes and psychological intensity while marking a potential turning point after a period of excess. The new moon in Scorpio, aligned with Mercury, Venus, and Lilith, underscores speculation and systemic fears, including concerns about market manipulation and abrupt reversals. This moment is further charged by a Sun-Uranus opposition, November 19, 22, introducing unpredictability and potential shocks, such as hacks, leaks, or sudden policy changes, that could trigger a sharp downturn. Despite this turbulence, supportive aspects from the Sun to Saturn and Jupiter prevent a total collapse, laying a foundation for recovery. Dip buying emerges as a strategic opportunity post-November 2021, particularly favoring DeFi and Layer 1 altcoins, as markets begin to reset. Following this correction, sentiment begins to improve. The Sun's entry into Sagittarius on November 22 ushers in themes of expansion, optimism, and global vision, gradually shifting market focus from secrecy and depth to exploration and innovation. This transition helps reinvigorate risk appetite, especially toward transformative technologies. The moon's journey through Scorpio, Sagittarius, and early Capricorn, November 20th, 25, sustains emotional intensity and may mark a speculative climax before momentum shifts again. Market exhaustion is expected between November 25th, 27, creating the potential for another correction or temporary top, a prudent window for exiting lingering positions. During this period, the moon conjuncts Pluto in Aquarius, amplifying narratives around innovation, decentralization, and privacy-focused projects. This alignment energizes altcoin speculation, signals deep structural changes, and may coincide with significant whale activity. The moon's transit through Aquarius also fosters rational optimism and technological focus, supporting Bitcoin's rally and reinforcing long-term bullish undercurrents. A pivotal stabilizing moment occurs on November 28, when Saturn stations direct in Pisces, ending a period of internal recalibration. This shift restores discipline, strengthens institutional confidence, and differentiates sustainable value from speculative hype. Saturn's direct motion helps stabilize chaotic energy, potentially marking a foundational market bottom and reinforcing gains in precious metals. It also provides structural support for future digital asset growth, especially as the astrological climate transitions toward order and long-term planning. The final days of November, 28-30, may present an end-of-month rally, as battered assets find support amid Venus's entry into optimistic Sagittarius and Mercury stationing direct in Scorpio. The moon's movement through Pisces, November 27-30, supports liquidity-driven rallies fueled by sentiment, suggesting partial profit-taking near month-end. On November 30th, the Aries moon trines the Sun, contributing to a strong market close, while Venus's opposition to Uranus could spark a surprise breakout or final shakeout. Overall, November evolves from early neutral bearish conditions to a decisively bullish close. After a major top and purge around the Scorpio new moon, markets rebound into a sustained rally extending into early December. The recommended strategy favors accumulating Bitcoin, gold, and stable assets, while reducing exposure to the U.S. dollar and overly speculative narratives, not financial advice. Late November becomes a period of recovery, renewal, and renewed momentum, setting the stage for December. Monthly market sentiment, November 2025, bullish momentum with heightened volatility. November 2025 presents a dynamic and emotionally charged market environment, driven by a significant astrological shift from Scorpio's transformative energy to Sagittarius's expansive optimism. The elemental dominance of water and fire underscores a market guided more by emotion and impulse than logic, fostering speculative behavior. Fixed signs introduce resistance at key price levels, yet these are likely to be disrupted by Uranian energy, reinforcing a broader cycle of volatility, purge, and renewal. While the overall backdrop remains mixed, the month is expected to trend bullish in the crypto sector, with sharp swings and strong momentum opportunities. The prevailing market mood can be summarized as a cycle of volatility, purge, and renewal. General cryptocurrency market sentiment, bullish, 7-10, with high volatility. The general cryptocurrency market is poised for a volatile yet upward trajectory, fueled by planetary alignments that emphasize innovation, disruption, and speculative appetite. Mars entering Sagittarius on November 4 amplifies risk-taking, synergizing with Jupiter's expansive influence to create favorable conditions for rallies, especially in high-beta assets like mid- and low-cap altcoins. A pivotal moment occurs with the full moon in Taurus on November 5, historically linked to sentiment peaks, coinciding with Venus moving into Scorpio, potentially triggering emotional profit-taking or a short-term pullback. A major structural shift unfolds as Uranus, planet of technological breakthroughs and decentralization, re-enters Taurus on November 8, its final such transition for 84 years. This influence strengthens crypto's role as an alternative to centralized finance, though its retrograde motion tempers immediate explosive moves, instead reinforcing underlying tensions between traditional and decentralized systems. Altcoins are expected to outperform, with a surge in momentum from November 6-8, when the Moon in Gemini conjuncts Uranus, creating ideal conditions for sudden, sharp price increases, particularly in tech-driven or innovation-focused sectors. Fire sign blockchains like Solana may lead gains, while privacy-centric projects benefit from Scorpio's emphasis on secrecy and resilience. Conversely, stablecoins and some DeFi protocols may face pressure as value frameworks shift under Uranus in Taurus and Jupiter's retrograde motion limits liquidity. Mid-month inflection, clarity, turbulence, and accumulation. Mercury stations retrograde in Sagittarius on November 9, increasing the risk of misinformation, exaggerated narratives, and market confusion, especially in speculative corners of crypto. This shifts on November 19 as Mercury enters Scorpio, a phase likely to reveal hidden truths, including potential exchange manipulations or bear traps, contributing to mid-month volatility. The new moon in Scorpio on November 20 acts as a powerful bottoming signal. With the Sun, Moon, Venus, Mercury, and asteroid Lilith forms a stellium in a fixed water sign, Scorpio. This period signifies a deep, transformative purge, clearing the path for a renewed bullish phase, particularly in altcoins. The window of November 19, 21 emerges as a high-probability accumulation zone, supported by harmonious aspects, Mercury trine Jupiter and Saturn. Momentum accelerates on November 21 as the Sun opposes Uranus, raising the potential for abrupt rallies, flash crashes, or unexpected regulatory news. Late November, altcoin season ignites. An emerging altcoin season is likely to activate between November 20 and 25, driven by a rising ETH-BTC ratio and accelerating capital flows into smaller cap assets. Traders are advised to position early and manage exposure as market sentiment shifts from fear toward greed. Bullish momentum strengthens toward late November, peaking around November 25, 28, coinciding with a grand water trine, intensifying emotional drive and sustaining upward pressure. From November 25, 27, the Moon in Aquarius conjuncts Pluto and later sextiles Neptune, creating a volatile yet opportunity-rich environment, especially for social tokens, meme coins, and DeFi innovations. This period may represent peak euphoria for community-driven assets like Doge, SHIB, and emerging AI-integrated tokens. The highest probability for outsized altcoin gains is concentrated on November 26, 27, when the Moon's sextile to Mars and square to Venus signals peak speculative fervor. Bitcoin, BTC, is expected to serve as a stabilizing force, leading recoveries from early month dips and anchoring the broader market. Its outlook is neutral bullish, acting as a foundational support rather than the primary source of momentum. Altcoins, especially fundamentally sound but oversold projects, stand to gain most from the mid to late month surge. Overall sentiment, 7-10 bullish, with high volatility and strong cyclical inflection points. While risks remain, particularly around misinformation and sudden regulatory shifts, the astrological currents favor a transformative November, culminating in a powerful renewal phase for the crypto markets. Asset-specific forecasts, detailed market-by-market analysis, Bitcoin market sentiment. Astrologically, Bitcoin is deeply influenced by Uranus, symbolizing disruption, innovation, and decentralization, aligning its archetype with Aquarius. The Sun, representing strength and value, positions BTC as a potential gold of the future. Uranus retrograde's final visit to Taurus on November 8 is expected to shake up valuation models, potentially through a brief correction or a misleading breakdown before renewed upward momentum. Overall market sentiment leans bullish, 7-10, but high volatility is a dominant theme this month due to Uranus's disruptive forces and Mercury's rapid information exchange. Early November, volatility and potential tops-bottoms. The beginning of November will be characterized by fluctuating risk appetite. Immediately after Mars enters Sagittarius on November 4, its opposition to retrograde Uranus in Gemini, at a critical 29 degrees, on November 5 is poised to trigger sudden price spikes and drops, coinciding with the Taurus full moon. Mars in Sagittarius amplifies speculative enthusiasm, while Venus in Scorpio, from November 6, adds emotional intensity to trading. A short-term top could appear around November 5, 6. Subsequently, a potential bottom might form near November 9, 11 as Mercury and Jupiter station retrograde, which could create market confusion. A SPY-the-dip opportunity is indicated around November 10 when the Moon in Cancer trines Jupiter, Saturn, and Neptune, offering emotional and structural support that harmonizes with Bitcoin's store of value narrative. Mid-month uncertainty and corrections, November 9, 20. This mid-month period carries the highest risk of sharp corrections. Stronger institutional consolidation and acceptance are signaled around November 17 by the Sun trine Jupiter and Saturn, Grand Water trine. However, acute instability will be driven by Mercury's retrograde motion in Sagittarius, later entering Scorpio, and its opposition to Uranus. This could manifest as technological glitches, communication breakdowns, or unexpected regulatory news severely impacting crypto sentiment. A sharp dip is particularly likely around November 19, aligning with the Mercury retrograde opposition to Uranus. A short-term peak is also expected around November 20, coinciding with the new moon in Scorpio and the alignment of the Sun, Moon, and Neptune. This high-emotion, high-greed environment favors taking partial profits, as the new moon further intensifies market psychological forces, potentially leading to periods of intense selling pressure. Late-month attempt at momentum, November 21, 30, renewed optimism likely to emerge later in the month as the Sun and Venus move into the expansive sign of Sagittarius, restoring confidence and shifting overall market sentiment to a more optimistic tone. Between November 25, 27, the Moon in Aquarius conjunct Pluto and sextile Neptune is expected to reignite innovative energy, potentially driving altcoin momentum that spills over into Bitcoin. This speculative energy could push Bitcoin towards a likely top around November 25, 29. However, the Sun's opposition to Uranus suggests that these attempts at upward momentum will likely be met with sharp, unpredictable pullbacks and corrections. Overall outlook, Bitcoin, BTC, is forecasted for a bullish month with significant volatility, sentiment score, 710. XRP, banking settlement coin and financial infrastructure token, XRP, market sentiment score, 6 to 7 out of 10, bullish after mid-month. XRP enters the month with an overall sentiment ranging from neutral to slightly bullish, 6 to 7 out of 10, characterized by extreme volatility and high sensitivity to regulatory news. As a primary banking and settlement coin, XRP aligns strongly with the Taurus, Scorpio financial axis, symbolizing the fusion of traditional money flows with disruptive technological transformation, Uranus. Its strong Saturnian presence, due to lengthy legal challenges, makes it highly responsive to shifts in regulatory clarity and the pace of institutional adoption. Early month volatility and strategic maneuvers. The early part of November emphasizes strategic maneuvers and the scrutiny of cross-border financial processes, driven by strong Sagittarius themes. While initial movement is supported by fluid, speculative moves, the period is marked by volatility, particularly around the November 5 Mars-Uranus opposition. This alignment risks conflict between aggressive actions and sudden, disruptive news, possibly related to unexpected legal or market events, requiring cautious engagement in market movements. Mid-month crisis and Mercury retrograde. The primary headwind for the asset is the Mercury retrograde period, which commences on November 9, later moving from Sagittarius into Scorpio on November 19. Since Sagittarius governs law, long-distance communication and international trade, themes central to the Ripple narrative, this phase introduces serious legal ambiguity, delayed rulings, and intensified speculative rumors. Confused communication and the revisiting of old legal issues are probable. Although a sharp, news-driven price pump is technically possible around the November 12 Mercury-Mars conjunction, this is likely to be a short-lived trap driven by emotion, demanding extreme caution due to the retrograde's tendency toward unreliable progress. Peak regulatory scrutiny and flash crash risk. Regulatory stress escalates severely mid-month, peaking around November 19, 21. Mercury's opposition to Uranus on November 19 risks sudden regulatory surprises, miscommunications, or setbacks concerning development timelines. The intense Scorpio new moon on November 20 could expose hidden information or intensify scrutiny, leading to heightened uncertainty and a likely price bottom. This specific window is identified as the most dangerous for false breakouts and a flash crash driven by negative news, as themes of centralized control temporarily weigh on performance. Late-month resolution and structural clarity. A significant turning point arrives near the end of the month when Saturn stations direct in Pisces on November 28. As the planet governs authority and structure, this event is expected to initiate a finalizing development in the long-running legal saga. While the initial transit suggests a sober reassessment of responsibilities and potential consequences, it ultimately brings structural clarity, potentially establishing a definitive price floor. A steadier, more constructive phase is signaled just before this, around November 26, when Venus trines Jupiter and Saturn, opening doors for greater cooperation and renewed institutional support. Outlook and key trading windows. Overall, sentiment remains highly mixed, trending from neutral bearish early in the month to slightly bullish, 7-10 later on, as Saturn's direct motion restores structural stability and confidence. The most promising upward momentum builds strongly from November 26, 28, fueled by improved institutional trust and support for structured innovation. Conversely, high bearish risk is concentrated during the period of peak regulatory uncertainty between November 17, 20. While the Mercury retrograde presents a formidable obstacle throughout, the late-month alignments create a powerful setup for long-awaited legal and structural resolution. XLM, the Humanitarian bridge and remittance twin of XRP, XLM, or stellar lumens, operates under the symbolic governance of Mercury, channeling a more altruistic expression compared to its counterpart XRP. Representing the elemental force of air, XLM embodies ideals of communication, innovation, and global connection, aligning closely with the astrological sign of Aquarius. Its core mission revolves around fostering financial inclusion and enabling efficient, equitable cross-border transactions, goals that reflect the expansive, humanitarian spirit of Aquarian energy. The coin is particularly responsive to Uranian shifts and Mercurial influences, drawing strength from the adaptable, communicative signs of Gemini and Virgo. These astrological ties underscore XLM's emphasis on technological agility, network expansion, and societal impact. Astrological drivers and market momentum. The entry of Mars into Sagittarius on November 4 energizes XLM's global vision, accelerating momentum for international remittance use cases and strategic initiatives. However, this same day brings a Mars-Uranus opposition, introducing volatility as aggressive market actions collide with unexpected news or disruptions. Early month dynamics are marked by strategic positioning, further influenced by Venus moving into Scorpio, which shifts focus toward deepening alliances and heightened scrutiny of cross-border financial systems. Despite this momentum, several retrogrades introduce headwinds. On November 8, Uranus retrograde re-enters Taurus, shifting emphasis from visionary innovation to material value, which may temporarily dampen the forward-thinking, air-dominant energy that fuels XLM's appeal. From November 9, Mercury's backward journey through Sagittarius and later from November 19 into Scorpio may delay technical rollouts or partnership announcements, demanding careful execution. The period of November 11, 13 presents significant turbulence. Mercury's conjunction with Mars, occurring simultaneously with Jupiter's stationing retrograde, risks a surge in speculative optimism quickly followed by sharp corrections. A brief, news-driven price spike around November 12 may resemble a bullish breakout but is more likely a trap born of confusion and emotional trading. Mid-month conditions intensify, particularly due to regulatory pressures. Mercury's opposition to Uranus on November 19 heightens the risk of miscommunication, delays in regulatory approvals, or setbacks in development timelines. This tension peaks around November 20, with a potent Scorpio new moon, known for revealing hidden truths and intensifying scrutiny. At this time, questions about XLM's underlying value or governance could surface, contributing to uncertainty and potentially marking a price bottom. The confluence of these transits makes November 19, 2021 a high-risk window for a flash crash, especially if negative news emerges. A shift towards stability begins mid to late month with the formation of a grand water trine linking the Moon and Jupiter in Cancer, the Sun in Scorpio, and Neptune in Pisces. This harmonious configuration strengthens emotional resonance with XLM's humanitarian mission, bolstering public sentiment around inclusive finance and restoring confidence in its long-term vision. A pivotal turning point arrives on November 28, when Saturn resumes direct motion in Pisces. While initially prompting a sober reassessment of project responsibilities and structural challenges, this transit ultimately brings clarity and discipline to XLM's development roadmap. It helps anchor the market, potentially establishing a price floor after the volatility of the Sun's opposition to Uranus on November 21. The most auspicious moment for positive news comes on November 30, as Venus enters Sagittarius. As the planet of value, beauty, and adoption, Venus enhances optimism, broadens appeal, and strengthens prospects for new global partnerships. This transit supports a constructive close to the month, fostering renewed momentum. XLM's overall sentiment is rated 6 to 7/10, slightly bullish. However, the trading environment remains choppy and highly reactive, particularly to regulatory developments. Given its deep ties to traditional financial infrastructure and ongoing oversight, reflecting Saturn-Pluto influences, XLM will respond strongly to both specific legal or transactional updates and broader shifts in market sentiment. Investors should remain alert to news flow, especially around governance, compliance, and international adoption. Ethereum ETH, the Alchemical Flame and Smart Contract Platform, the Ethereum ecosystem, representing the vanguard of smart contract platforms, holds an overall bullish sentiment, scoring 7/10. Identified as an Aquarius, Virgo synthesis focused on systems, infrastructure, and efficiency, Ethereum is undergoing a pivotal transition. The market focus is shifting away from purely technological breakthroughs toward the practical integration of financial value, real-world assets, and economic utility, a thematic change driven by the influence of Uranus retrograde entering Taurus. As a foundational force behind Web3 and DeFi, Ethereum is evolving beyond mere protocol logic into a symbol of collective digital rebirth, increasingly resonating with Neptune's themes of vision and decentralized ideals. The ecosystem is focusing on building immersive experiences and on-chain identity systems. Specifically, Venus in Scorpio amplifies demand for soulbound tokens and reputation-based protocols. The consensus views ETH as the digital ether, or digital water, a fluid, essential layer. Navigating mid-month volatility, the most significant risk and potential for disruption occur in mid-November, particularly during the period of November 19 to 21, when Mercury and the Sun oppose Uranus. This challenging aspect signals heightened volatility, risk of protocol vulnerabilities, unexpected network stress events, or controversy surrounding proposed Ethereum improvement proposals, EIPs. These oppositions suggest a potential disruption to core functionality, such as developer disputes or sudden adverse changes in market perception regarding underlying value. Furthermore, the earlier November 4 Mars-Uranus opposition also contributes to this period of instability. While early November might see initial speculative peaks, the sharp pullbacks associated with these events suggest that the market bottom will likely manifest between mid and late November. Structural reinforcement and late-month growth. Following this turbulent period, Ethereum is poised for a phase of structural reinforcement and renewed optimism. The greatest stabilizing influence comes from Saturn stationing direct in Pisces on November 28. This event bolsters investor confidence in Ethereum's foundational growth, particularly reinforcing the stability and viability of its staking model, scalability solutions, and overall infrastructure. Mars and the Sun entering Sagittarius injects renewed enthusiasm and harmonizes with ETH's natural fire element, translating into building momentum for Layer 2 development and scaling narratives. Despite the potential for short-term confusion or delays caused by Mercury's retrograde, the steadying influence of Saturn by the end of the month supports a robust recovery and reaffirms Ethereum's primary role as the bedrock of the decentralized future. This stabilization window is expected to drive a peak in sentiment between November 28 and 30. Solana, the Lightning Courier. Performance and archetype. Solana (SOL) is characterized by dynamic volatility, aligning with a solar Leo archetype. This suggests a bullish yet inherently unstable trend for November. Solana functions as a swift messenger, akin to a high-frequency trader, driven by Mercury's speed and Mars's dynamic energy. Its air and fire elements signify rapid communication coupled with volatility and intensity, making it a fast blockchain but also prone to turbulence. The Leo-Aries resonance highlights its preference for speed, visibility, and innovation. A broader theme for smart contract platforms in November is the integration of technology with financial value. As Uranus retrogrades back into Taurus, market focus will shift from pure technological advancement to the real-world asset integration and economic utility of these platforms. With Mars and the Sun entering Sagittarius, enthusiasm for Solana is expected to surge, fueling development and market interest, positioning it as a strong performer despite early month volatility. A potential price peak may occur around the November 5 full moon, but sustained gains are unlikely. Momentum is anticipated to build significantly towards the end of November. However, Solana faces specific challenges. Mercury's retrograde in Sagittarius, beginning November 9, points to a high likelihood of network congestion, failed transactions, and technical glitches that could undermine confidence. Mid-November brings emotional turbulence for Sun-branded assets due to lunar aspects, potentially triggering corrective sentiment. Jupiter stationing retrograde on November 11 encourages introspection and a pause in aggressive expansion, compelling platforms to strengthen internal foundations. The period around the Mercury-Mars conjunction on November 12 poses the highest risk of network stress and a potential downturn, possibly leading to significant sell-offs due to performance issues. Further disruptions may arise from the Sun opposing Uranus on November 21, potentially causing temporary validator issues or downtime, though swift recovery is possible. Risks for broader smart contract platforms are heightened late mid-month, November 19 to 21, when Mercury and the Sun oppose Uranus. This aspect signals potential disruptions to core functionality, such as network upgrade issues, developer disputes, or sudden negative shifts in market perception of underlying value. While early November might see peaks driven by speculation, sharp pullbacks are expected around the Uranus oppositions, with the bottom likely occurring mid to late November. The month concludes with stabilizing influences, Sun entering Sagittarius joining Mars inject renewed optimism, and Saturn turning direct encourages a focus on ethical and sustainable decentralized growth. DeFi altcoins, financial innovation, e.g., Uni, AAVE, CRV, Comp, MKR. The landscape of decentralized finance altcoins characterized by a potent blend of astrological archetypes that drive financial innovation, systemic disruption, and the establishment of new governance structures, reflecting a fundamental shift in economic power primarily under the transformative influence of Uranus, the planet of innovation and decentralization. These DeFi assets, deeply entwined with archetypes of financial transformation such as Pluto and Scorpio for systemic change, and influenced by inner planets like Venus for liquidity, Mercury for smart contract precision, and Jupiter for yield, aim to fundamentally reshape traditional financial products. The architecture of DeFi, particularly in decentralized autonomous organizations, DAOs, and yield farming, necessitates a crucial balance between Uranus's disruptive energy and Saturn's governance and stability, fostering resilient, self-governing systems that embody a spirit of rebellion against traditional finance, with the ultimate goal of expanding financial inclusion and decentralizing monetary control. Early November, disruptive beginnings and hidden risks. The month kicks off with Mars entering Sagittarius on November 4th. The following day, November 5th, brings a full moon in Taurus alongside a Mars-Uranus opposition. This potent combination is expected to highlight concerns around liquidity and asset valuation, potentially marking a peak in yield farming narratives before a correction, and could disrupt yield protocols or escalate regulatory tensions, leading to market jitters. As Venus moves into Scorpio on November 6th, there will be an intense focus on fundamental financial principles, bringing issues of underlying leverage, debt, and hidden risks to the forefront, while fostering heightened scrutiny around audits and protocol security. On November 8th, Uranus retrogrades back into Taurus, signaling a volatile reassessment of value within the DeFi sector, which it governs as the archetype of decentralization and innovation. Mid-November, reduced optimism and heightened volatility mid-month sees a period of restraint and increased risk. Jupiter stations retrograde in Cancer on November 11th, dampening optimism regarding growth and yields within decentralized finance ecosystems, potentially slowing down DAO governance initiatives and stalling growth in total value locked, TVL. This period encourages a reevaluation of sustainability and acceptable risk levels. Concurrently, Mercury stations retrograde in Sagittarius on November 9th, then enters Scorpio on November 19th, further reducing initial risk appetite and amplifying risks related to smart contract audits, vulnerabilities, and governance disputes. A Mercury-Mars conjunction between November 10th to 12th carries the risk of panic-driven trades and volatility. The period from November 19th to 22nd is identified as particularly critical and disruptive. A Scorpio stellium, Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Lilith, culminating in the new moon in Scorpio on November 20th, directly opposes Uranus retrograde in Taurus. This introduces significant volatility, potentially fueling fears of protocol exploits, surprising regulatory actions, or sudden governance-driven price swings. However, despite the heightened risks, this Scorpio new moon also ushers in a cycle of transformation, encouraging hidden innovation and back-end development focused on enhancing security and economic robustness. A grand water trine emerging later in the month is poised to support robust, subtle liquidity flows into lending and yield platforms, strengthening structural resilience and reinforcing belief in the long-term vision of DeFi. Late November, turning point and gradual recovery. A significant turning point is anticipated towards the end of the month. On November 28th, Saturn turns direct in Pisces, signaling a karmic reset and reigniting progress in structural upgrades, protocol development, and trust-building efforts. This shift is expected to bring a sense of discipline and structure, favoring DeFi projects that prioritize responsibility, real-world utility, and stable yields over purely speculative ventures. As Venus enters Sagittarius on November 30th, speculative interest in DeFi tokens is expected to reignite, shifting overall sentiment. The period between November 28th and 30th, with Saturn turning direct and Venus entering Sagittarius, is considered the most favorable, indicating a potential sector stabilization and a shift from the neutral to bearish sentiment of early November towards a more moderately bullish outlook by month's end. Web3 and AI tokens, Mercurial, Uranian archetype, future technology and intelligence, Web3 and AI tokens, including projects like Fetch.ai, SingularityNet, Ocean Protocol, BitTensor, The Graph, and Render, represent the convergence of future technology and intelligence. Astrologically, these assets embody a Mercurial-Uranian archetype, influenced by logic of Mercury, technological disruption, Uranus, and vision, Neptune. Their elemental blend of air and water signifies a powerful fusion of data-driven intelligence with intuitive, creative applications, making them pivotal for innovations in generative AI, digital consciousness, and emotionally intelligent systems. These tokens are intrinsically linked to the Aquarius-Gemini archetypes, governing intelligence, data, communication, and disruptive technology. This sector is highly dynamic, characterized by high momentum and sharp volatility, driven by influences of speed, Mercury, innovation, Uranus, and velocity, Mars. The overall market sentiment for Web3 and AI tokens in this category carry a bullish-leaning sentiment, 710. However, this bullishness is accompanied by a projection of high volatility. The market is expected to experience initial chaos, becoming more grounded towards the end of the month, yet remaining highly reactive to Mercury-Uranus dynamics. The beginning of November sees a significant energy injection as Mars enters Sagittarius on the 4th, driving rapid development, bold explorations, and aggressive marketing for new projects. This transit fuels expansive, speculative narratives and accelerates global tech adoption, particularly for fast blockchains. A sudden surge in AI and generative technology tokens is anticipated around November 5th, when Mars opposes Uranus. Following this, Uranus retrograde re-enters Taurus for the final time on November 8th. This offers a bullish signal by grounding AI in tangible real-world value, such as computing power and intellectual property, while simultaneously creating tension between rapid innovation and increased scrutiny over data privacy and ethical AI use. Mid-November marks a period of heightened vulnerability. With Mercury retrograde commencing on November 9th, this sector, heavily influenced by Mercury and Aquarius, becomes susceptible to miscommunication, project delays, inaccuracies in AI models, often termed hallucinations, and broken promises. This volatility will largely be attributed to the retrograde motion. The most vulnerable period is projected between November 10th and 11th, potentially triggering profit-taking and a collapse of overheated narratives. Jupiter's retrograde station on November 11th might slow institutional adoption but allows for crucial refinement of existing technologies. Further instability is expected around November 19th, with Mercury's opposition to Uranus, potentially bringing bursts of excitement and innovation. However, Mercury's retrograde motion could distort market signals, leading to brief speculative spikes. The period around November 20th is critical. The Sun's opposition to Uranus could trigger instability and sudden reversals, exposing unforeseen bugs or ethical dilemmas. Paradoxically, this chaotic energy may spur rapid innovation and breakthroughs despite temporary market corrections. A pivotal moment arrives with the new moon in Scorpio on November 20th, a potent event for technological transformation. This new moon could unearth deep, hidden truths, potentially leading to a crash in overvalued projects and a clearer distinction between genuinely innovative projects and mere hype. Overall, the mid-month period carries a risk of market correction due to potential AI model inaccuracies, data leaks, or ethical concerns. As the month progresses, a more optimistic outlook emerges. A grand water trine later in November adds an emotional dimension to AI, supporting applications focused on emotional, healing, or creative domains, fueling speculation in synthetic media and AI avatars, and benefiting personality-driven AI tokens. The Sun's entry into Sagittarius on November 22nd is inherently bullish, directing market attention towards future possibilities and expansion. Despite high volatility suggesting mid-month drops, the renewed optimism and exploratory drive from Sagittarius placements point toward a potential monthly high towards the end of November. Finally, as Saturn shifts to direct motion after November 28th, the market is expected to regain clarity and confidence, testing the substance of prevailing ideas and projects. Despite the inherent volatility, a strong bullish sentiment, 8-10, is anticipated for the latter half of the month, particularly for projects like Fetch.ai, Render, and The Graph, as they align with the transformative energy of the Scorpio new moon. The strongest momentum is expected in two waves, November 4th to 6th and November 28th to 30th, with the most likely downturn occurring between November 18th to 20th. Privacy altcoins, a balancing act of secrecy and scrutiny, Scorpio, Plutonian archetype, privacy altcoins, such as Monero, Zcash, Dash, and AZERO, embody the Scorpio-Plutonian archetype of secrecy, power, and hidden value. Often regarded as crypto's shadow guardians, these assets prioritize confidentiality, resistance to surveillance, and discrete financial activity. For November, their outlook is predominantly bullish, with sentiment scores ranging from 610 to 910, indicating strong potential for growth. November brings several powerful astrological alignments favorable to these assets. While early November might experience short-term downturns due to regulatory scrutiny or disruptive news, potentially around the full moon in Taurus on November 5th or a Mars opposition to Uranus, the broader trend is upward. Venus's transit through Scorpio from November 6th to 30th significantly amplifies interest in hidden values, discrete transactions, and personal autonomy, setting a positive tone for the month. The month's most impactful lunation for themes of privacy, surveillance, and covert finance is the potent new moon in Scorpio on November 20th, expected to catalyze a significant rally. Further intensifying this focus, Mercury's retrograde back into Scorpio, also beginning around November 19th, will highlight financial privacy and untraceable transactions. Despite the prevailing secretive energy, November is not without its tensions. The Sun-Uranus opposition on November 20th could expose vulnerabilities or trigger fears of government surveillance, potentially fueling fear of missing out into privacy assets. The period from the Scorpio new moon, November 20th, through Venus entering Sagittarius, November 30th, appears particularly strong for an upward move. This is further amplified by the moon's conjunction to Pluto around November 25th. Which underscores demand for financial sovereignty and may signal clandestine accumulation by savvy actors. This bullish sentiment is characterized more by shadow demand and underground adoption, reflecting whale accumulation that may not be widely visible, rather than overt public rallies. Concluding the month, the dominant narrative shifts even more decisively in favor of these assets. Saturn turning direct in Pisces on November 28th suggests a move towards more structured, legally sound, and resilient privacy solutions. Overall, the astrological synergy for privacy altcoins in November is exceptionally strong. The convergence of multiple Scorpio placements, including Venus, Mercury retrograde, and the Scorpio new moon stellium, creates an ideal archetypal alignment, positioning these assets as essential safe havens in times of digital and financial uncertainty. Stablecoins, the anchor in turbulent times, Taurus Cancer archetype, store of value. Stablecoins, including USDT, USDC, and DAI, serve as crucial anchors in the volatile cryptocurrency market, embodying the archetype of the store of value. Symbolically, they are associated with Venus, representing underlying value, and the Moon, governing liquidity. Their structural foundation aligns strongly with the Earth element, Taurus and Capricorn, emphasizing security, collateral, and structural governance provided by Saturn, reinforcing their role as a financial safe haven. Early November demand and liquidity flush. The month begins with a strong surge in demand for stability. The full moon in Taurus on November 5th is anticipated to trigger a significant liquidity flush, driving investors to rotate funds into stablecoins as a primary safe haven. This period is expected to mark an early peak in usage, bolstering the perception of stablecoins as reliable assets for value preservation. Mid-month disruption and scrutiny. The second week introduces intense scrutiny and disruptive energy. On November 8th, Uranus re-enters Taurus, retrograde, challenging the very foundations of stablecoin stability. This transit is expected to prompt intense questioning over reserve backing, regulatory integrity, and custodial risks, particularly for centralized issuers like Tether. While this transit could foster innovative changes in how stability is maintained, potentially leading to new stablecoin models, it simultaneously destabilizes the public perception of their permanence. Further contributing to conservative, savings-oriented behavior is Jupiter's retrograde movement, which stations on November 11th, encouraging a flight to perceived safety amidst ongoing market turbulence. Skepticism intensifies around November 19th as Mercury retrogrades back into Scorpio, raising concerns regarding transparency, audit integrity, and the potential for hidden risks. The paradoxical crisis point astrological alignments between November 19th and 21st, specifically Mercury opposing retrograde Uranus and the Sun opposing Uranus, are highlighted as a potential bottom period. This time is ripe for rumors of a stablecoin crash, fears of a depegging event, or a significant regulatory shock. Paradoxically, while Uranus erodes trust and the new moon in Scorpio exposes underlying mechanisms, the emotional need for safety amplifies. This dynamic creates a scenario likened to a leaky life raft. Confidence and reliability declines, yet practical usage increases drastically due to wider market volatility. This period may also see a temporary dip in preference for centralized stablecoins, USDC/USDT, as investors consider decentralized alternatives, DeFi. Late-month stabilization and recovery, sentiment regains stability toward the end of November. Saturn turning direct in Pisces on November 28 signals a structural recovery, reinforcing credibility through increased oversight and a focus on established order. This transit is particularly favorable for well-regulated stablecoins and solidifies long-term trust in decentralized options like DeFi. Despite mid-month fluctuations, a final and stronger usage peak for stablecoins is anticipated in late November, driven by renewed volatility in the broader crypto market and the subsequent rush to safety. Overall sentiment for stablecoins throughout November is characterized as neutral to mildly bullish, ranging 6.10 to 7.510. This trend is defined by strong early inflows, followed by mid-month concerns over centralized reserve structures, and culminating in a late-month structural stabilization. Crucially, while the perception of reliability may be neutral to slightly bearish, practical adoption and utilization are expected to increase significantly, driven primarily by fear and uncertainty in the wider market. DXY US Dollar Index Traditional Finance, bearish pressure under planetary stress with late-month rebound potential. The US dollar index is forecast to face a highly dynamic and challenging November, characterized by extreme volatility and conflicting astrological signals. Sentiment scores among forecasts range widely, from bearish 410 to bullish 610. The DXY is astrologically associated with symbols of authority and structure, specifically the Sun, Saturn, and Pluto, representing power and financial control, alongside influences from Taurus, Venus's value, and Jupiter, global balance. Early month weakness and destabilization, November 2nd, 10. The DXY begins the month under immediate pressure, November 2nd, 5, due to challenging aspects involving Venus, Mars opposing Uranus, and Mercury retrograde disrupting global trade narratives. A likely top for the DXY is anticipated around November 3rd, 5, coinciding with aggressive global rhetoric from Mars entering Sagittarius and the full moon in Taurus, November 5th. A multi-year destabilizing cycle is highlighted by Uranus re-entering Taurus around November 8th. This event directly challenges the dollar's perceived dominance as a reserve currency, correlating with declining faith in central banks. Furthermore, Venus entering Scorpio on November 6th is expected to exert continued weakening pressure on the dollar, favoring alternative assets. Mid-month contradictions and safe haven flows, November 11th, 21. Mid-month dynamics present a complex contradiction. While Jupiter stationing retrograde in Cancer, around November 11th, is noted for enhancing the dollar's appeal as a liquidity haven amid tightening conditions and financial stress, capital simultaneously shifts toward alternatives. The Sun, Venus, and Mercury moving through Scorpio are seen as catalysts for amplifying distrust in central institutions. Despite the pressure to move capital out of fiat, fear and volatility are expected to drive periods of a risk-off sentiment, favoring the dollar's perceived safety. This pressure may drive resilience and a potential peak for the DXY around November 10th, 12, and again between November 19th, 21. The new moon in Scorpio, November 20th, and the central theme of the Sun-Uranus opposition, November 20th, underscore a significant clash between the existing fiat structure and decentralized financial systems. The period between November 11th, 21 is generally seen as one of consolidation or continued dollar demand driven by volatility. Late-month capitulation and structural rebound, November 25th, 30. The deepest low for the DXY is projected towards the end of the month, likely between November 25th, 27, marking a period of intense capitulation. This low is influenced by the Moon conjuncting Pluto and squaring Uranus, and Jupiter opposing the Moon, contributing to weakened sentiment. The broader shift toward risk-on behavior, supported by the Scorpio-Sagittarius transit mix, diminishes demand for safe haven assets. Following this deep low, a strong structural rally and potential peak are forecast between November 26th, 30. This late-month stability is significantly supported by Saturn turning direct in Pisces on November 28th. This event is widely cited as positive, expected to restore institutional credibility, reduce volatility, and lend long-term, stable bullish support to the dollar's perceived value. A final push is likely around November 30th due to the Venus-Uranus opposition. Overall, while predictions point to a strengthening trend towards month-end due to stabilizing planetary forces, the persistent bearish bias suggests that this late recovery may be short-lived and unsustainable. As dollar strength wanes, conditions are favorable for going long on gold, silver, and cryptocurrency. A more durable rebound for the DXY may only emerge in December. Gold, XEU, bullish, market sentiment score, 7.5 out of 10. Gold is anticipated to have a strong performance in November, driven by its traditional role as a safe haven asset, particularly benefiting from a period of Uranian uncertainty. The overall sentiment for the month is bullish, with resilience expected amidst mixed signals. Strength is projected to build progressively, despite some mid-month fluctuations and competition from alternative assets like cryptocurrencies. The likely bottom for the month is expected between November 9th and 13th, with a likely top occurring between November 22nd and 28th. Key underlying astrological themes supporting gold include its alignment with the Sun and Pluto, representing intrinsic value and transformation, Scorpio season enhancing awareness of hidden worth, and the long-term support from Uranus in Taurus challenging fiat currencies and strengthening demand for hard assets. Early November, volatility and initial peaks. The month begins with significant bullish impulse, but also considerable volatility. The Mars opposition Uranus in Taurus on November 4th threatens sharp, unpredictable price movements. The full moon in Taurus on November 5th is a highly bullish indicator, signaling a short-term price spike and strengthening gold's role as a stable, physical safe haven, potentially marking a temporary peak. While Venus entering Scorpio on November 6th may temporarily favor speculative assets, the retrograde ingress of Uranus into Taurus around November 8th provides a significant bullish undercurrent. This period is also sensitive to water sign moons early in the month, which can increase safe haven flows. Mid-November, consolidation and building stability. A temporary dip or consolidation is anticipated around November 9th to 15th, influenced by Mercury's retrograde, starting November 9th, and Jupiter's retrograde, November 11th, which could lead to a reassessment of safe haven assets. The last quarter moon in Leo, November 12th to 13th, also suggests a period of consolidation. Despite this, strength begins to build. Supportive aspects like the Sun trining Jupiter and Saturn around November 17 enhance stability, favor investment in real assets, and reinforce gold's role as an inflation hedge. However, mid-November is expected to remain exceptionally volatile, with Mercury's retrograde and its opposition to Uranus in Taurus on November 19 potentially causing rapid rallies followed by swift sell-offs. The new moon in Scorpio on November 20 could trigger fear-based buying and renewed focus on deep value and resources, paving the way for recovery. Late November, strong bullish finish. The end of November is forecasted to be exceptionally bullish. Strong supportive aspects towards the end of the month, including Venus forming robust trines with Jupiter, November 26, and Saturn, November 27, will heavily support perceived value, growth, and stability. Saturn turning direct in Pisces around November 28 acts as a very strong bullish signal, resolving structural uncertainties, boosting confidence in long-term gold holdings, and solidifying the value of timeless assets. The enduring Uranus-Neptune sextile also contributes to a strong finish for precious metals as they reassert their role as stable stores of value. A steady climb is anticipated through this period, aligning with the expected monthly top. The Venus-Uranus opposition on November 30 could trigger another spike, potentially from geopolitical news or inflationary scares. Overall, gold is well positioned to attract steady safe haven flows throughout November, with a gradual ascent accelerating in the latter half of the month. Investors are also advised to monitor Federal Reserve rhetoric during the Scorpio new moon period. Silver, XAG bullish. Market sentiment score, 8 out of 10, volatile with speculative upside late in month. Silver enters November with a robustly bullish outlook, though expectations are framed by exceptionally high volatility. Governed primarily by the Moon and Venus, silver is highly reactive to emotional market shifts and Uranian disruptions, a characteristic of its dual nature as both a precious metal and an industrial commodity. The overall forecast for the month is choppy but structurally higher, with strong speculative upside anticipated late in the period. Early month, volatility and initial peaks, November 1st, 8th. The month opens with strong supportive drivers, setting a tone similar to gold. Mars's entry into Sagittarius on November 4th fuels generalized speculative appetite and momentum for commodities. This period is marked by extreme volatility, largely due to the Mars-Uranus opposition, which may trigger sudden, disruptive price movements around November 4th. The full moon in Taurus on November 5th provides initial support, often acting as a turning point and marking a short-term high for precious metals. A flash rally and short-term price spike are highly likely around November 6th, reflecting silver's sensitivity to quick, retail-driven speculation. Investors are advised to look for buy opportunities on pullbacks during this first week. Mid-month, consolidation and reassessment, November 9th, 22. Mid-November is projected to bring consolidation and a temporary dip. This setback is largely due to challenging aspects impacting silver's industrial demand profile, particularly Mercury and Jupiter entering retrograde, starting November 9th and 11th, respectively. Mercury's retrograde undermines technological and supply chain narratives, potentially leading to a temporary de-escalation of inflationary concerns, while Venus in Scorpio favors rare assets over industrial metals. This points to a consolidation and a likely bottoming phase between November 12th and November 22nd, coinciding with the new moon in Scorpio on November 20th. This new moon signals a shift toward deep value and fear-based buying, paving the way for recovery. Late month, strong rally and outperformance, November 23rd, 30. The final week of November is forecasted to deliver the most potent and profitable momentum, resulting in a robust rally, November 24th, 28. Building strength begins around November 17th, with the Sun forming supportive trines with Jupiter and Saturn, offering traditional backing and stability for wealth. The late-month surge benefits from a concentration of positive alignments. Venus forms strong trines with Jupiter, 26th, and Saturn, 27th, heavily supporting perceived value and stability. Crucially, Saturn turning direct on November 28 resolves structural uncertainties, leading to clearer trends and firmer prices. Supported by the enduring Uranus-Neptune sextile, this late momentum is expected to allow silver to sharply outperform gold, though the final Venus-Uranus opposition on November 30 may trigger one last volatile spike fueled by geopolitical news or inflation scares. This concludes our crypto and financial market astrology analysis. Please support my work, press the like button, and subscribe. Thank you for watching and see you next time.